Beyond the buzzer, inside the game, this is SportsIQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, we made it to Friday here on the SportsIQ. Glad you're with us. Another great show coming up here. We've got Max Dibble, a friend of the show, returning to the show to talk about the Packers as they get ready to open their season against the Lions this weekend. Also, a bit later, we get a little bit of college football. Our friends from IlliniGuys.com do a great show, the Illini Guys Sports Spectacular. It's on like 25 markets all through the Midwest. You heard in 6 states, including WLS in Chicago. They're back on the Fan in St. Louis. But anyway, our friend Mike Cagley caught up with Josh Cox, who is a Duke podcaster, talking about the 11th ranked Illinois at Duke game tomorrow. That's pretty intriguing. You know, this Duke's got this quarterback, Darien Mensa, you may have heard about. Basically was ignored coming out of high school, like put his own stuff up on YouTube, gets to Tulane, has a breakout year last year, enters the portal. And this guy says that, had several suitors in the SEC coming after him, and he winds up going to Duke for $4 million. He's given money to charity. He's bought a house. Of course, he drives a Mercedes, brand new Mercedes, but he makes as much as his coach. But anyway, he's the real deal, Darien Mensa. And so we'll hear more about that in this matchup. Illinois, one of those teams that's on the up right now in their 5th year under Brett Bielema. So we'll have that coming up here in just a few moments. Let's get a couple of headlines for you very quickly before Max joins us, talking to producer Tony. NFL opened the 2025 season last night. The Eagles beating the Cowboys. Quarterback Jalen Hurts with a couple of rushing touchdowns. But the big story still, sadly, over this was what happened before the game. Star defensive lineman Jalen Carter spit on Dallas quarterback Dak Prescott during a pregame altercation and was ejected from the game without ever playing a snap. And he's maybe the best defender in the game today. So he did later apologize. By the way, Hurts said he talked to Carter and said, quote, "It won't happen again." But again, they've got this new sponsorship or sportsmanship rules, right? So he may face further punishment for a spit. Just get on your side of the field. What are you doing? So anyway, hour-long lightning delay pushed the game's conclusion past midnight. But the Eagles get the win 24-20, and they will now face the Chiefs next week in a Super Bowl rematch. Speaking of Kansas City, they play the Chargers tonight in Brazil. WNBA news, Caitlin Clark announcing that she will miss the rest of the WNBA regular season, which concludes, by the way, next Thursday. She'll miss the playoffs as well if they get there. Last year's Rookie of the Year, out since July 15th with the groin and then later an ankle injury. Turns out with all the injuries she had this year, she played just 13 games. Just a tough for her. In fact, she never played more than 5 games in a row. Sophomore year just never got on track. That huge game to open the season back in May on a Saturday afternoon, they routed Chicago, and she just went nuts in that game. And then really just it went downhill from there. By the way, Indiana versus Chicago tonight, that game in Indianapolis, that's on Ion, 7:30 tip there. We begin at 7 o'clock. New York, Seattle's the second game. Indiana right now in 8th place, by the way, going in. We'll talk more WNBA here in a moment. 5th injury, by the way, for the Fever, season-ending injury. McDonald, Colson, Cunningham, and then yesterday also Chloe Bibby out for the year as well. Tough going now for the Fever. In tennis, no All-American women's final at the U.S. Open. Amanda Anisimova defeating Naomi Osaka 6-7, 7-6, 6-3. By the way, Osaka had never lost in a quarterfinal, semifinal, or finals match at a major. She was 13-0 in her career when getting to the quarters at a Grand Slam event. But she goes down to Anisimova, who now faced number 1 Arina Sabalenka. She beat number 4 Jessica Pegula. I mispronounced her name yesterday, and I apologize. It's a Freudian slip on my part. 4-6, 6-3, 6-4. Pegula goes down, and it'll be Sabalenka versus Anisimova in the finals. By the way, Sabalenka trying to become the first repeat champion at the U.S. Open since Serena Williams won 3 straight back in 2012 through 2014. Men's semifinals today, Novak Djokovic taking on Carlos Alcaraz in one match, and then later it is the top seed, Yannick Sinner versus Felix Auger-Aliassime. Let me get this right. Auger-Aliassime from Canada. He is the number 25 seed there. Okay, let's get now to producer Tony, who has our first guest.
Well, thanks, Larry. Yeah, the NFL season is finally here. Football fans everywhere rejoicing. We've had one game in the books, a lot more still to come. The Chiefs and Chargers tonight from down in Brazil. But we are joined now by Max Dibble. He is the heavy.com writer that covers one of the teams he covers is the Green Bay Packers. And Max, let's talk a little bit about the Packers here. The big news was last week. Kind of shocked everybody. There had been some rumblings here and there, like Micah Parsons would fit in Green Bay. Micah Parsons might be a help for Green Bay. But I don't think anybody really took it seriously until we saw the announcement of the trade.
Yeah, I heard the same things that you were hearing. The Packers made the most sense, perhaps, of any team as a trade partner. So I'm not surprised that when Micah Parsons became available, they jumped on it, particularly for the price at which they got him. 2 first-round picks and a starting defensive tackle or nose tackle in Kenny Clark, that's a good haul for most players. That's not enough for Micah Parsons. So the Packers made out like bandits, in my opinion, and I think in the opinions of a lot of other people who follow the sport and follow the team closely. So I wasn't surprised that they would jump on that, especially at that price. I'm very surprised, still shocked really, that Dallas would trade maybe the best defensive player in the sport at the age of 26. That makes no sense to me. I'm never going to understand it. They can talk, Jerry Jones can talk about, oh, we're going to flip these 2 first-round picks for another player. Yeah, that player is not going to be Micah Parsons. It makes no sense at all. And they talk about him not being a good run defender. He's a pretty good run defender. I don't know. I didn't understand it at all. But for everybody in Green Bay, they should be thanking their lucky stars because they just stole one of the best players maybe in the history of the NFL when it's all said and done.
Yeah, I mean, his stats are comparable to Reggie White at the same point in their careers. They're the only 2 players to have 12 sacks each of their first 4 seasons in the league. That's an impressive number to put up there. I don't care what metric you're using to measure greatness.
That's insane. And he missed some time last year. I mean, like he hasn't been a guy who's had health problems, but he missed some time. And so now, obviously, I cover the entire NFC North and do it without fandom. But I grew up a Bears fan. And so, of course, the Packers would have the only guy who ever had 12 sacks in each of his first 4 seasons and then trade for the only other guy who has done it. Everybody else in the NFC is just rolling their eyes and sick to their stomach. And you have to be. You have to be because Green Bay is coming. They're coming now. I still don't love their cornerback room, but you got to consider Green Bay one of the top 3 or 4 contenders to win the NFC at this point.
Yeah, isn't that the way it is though in the NFL? If you're not really thrilled with your cornerback room, one of the ways to cover that up is with a great pass rush.
Yeah, absolutely.
It should be a great pass rush.
It should be because it's antithetical to what you think about on offense. Like on offense, if you've got a great wide receiver, it's a zero-sum game. Every all the attention that CeeDee Lamb gets, right? Every target he gets, every catch he makes, that's a catch or a target that George Pickens doesn't get. But the attention that Micah Parsons is going to get on defense is just going to make it all that much easier for Rashawn Gary. His matchups are going to be better. He's probably going to have a career year. I don't know why he wouldn't. He's healthy. He's still in his prime. He's in the middle of this big contract. Lucas Van Ness, he's been a disappointment for 2 seasons, a first-round pick, 7 sacks in 2 years. This is the best thing that could ever happen to him. Now, I mean, he might not see as many snaps, but he should be more successful when he's on the field. And yeah, you're absolutely right. The cornerback room, it's a little bit shaky. I mean, Javon Bullard is a second-year safety who's going to probably be the nickel corner when they put those nickel packages on the field, because that's just how thin they are at the cornerback position. But that's really the only weakness on the defense as I see it. There's some questions with Kenny Clark leaving, about like the interior of the defensive line, but and the depth that they have there specifically against the run. No roster except maybe the Eagles is perfect. And so there are a couple, little questions here and there for Green Bay, but putting a guy like Micah Parsons on the field, it's going to erase a lot of the question marks, and it's going to cover up a lot of the deficiencies that you might have in other positions.
Yeah, we've seen that Micah Parsons effect in Dallas. When he's on the field, the Dallas defense the last 3 years had the best average per play of points allowed. They were the best at giving up the fewest points allowed per play when he's on the field. When he's off the field, they are the worst. They give up the most points per play. So you can see how one guy can cover up for a lot of bad things going on in other places on your defense.
Yeah, especially when it's a guy who in the first second or two of a play can blow the whole thing up by getting into the backfield, and not just as a pass rusher, which he does as well as just about anybody in the league, but as a run defender too. I mean, the guy's got. I think I'd have to go back and look, but I want to say he's played in 63 games. And I believe he has 63 tackles for loss. So I mean, it's almost a sack a game, and it's a tackle for loss a game. I mean, that's even if that's just 2 plays, it kills 2 drives. That's huge. I mean, one guy killing 2 drives in an NFL football game is an enormous advantage to have. So yeah, the Packers should be thrilled.
Is this a move? Do you think? Because one thing I've been reading. We know Mark Murphy had to retire because the Packers had the forced retirement at age 70. That's it. You're done. Can't work past that with this organization. So he had to retire. They bring in the new president. He didn't bring in Gutekunst. He didn't bring in LaFleur. Did some of that seem to be like, okay, we got to make a stamp now, GM, coach, do you want to go out and give up 2 picks for this? And the 2 of them getting together and go, look, we know that we could be, maybe, possibly, this season might have an impact on our future here in Green Bay, right?
I think that's interesting. I'm not sure if I buy that, but because they just don't strike me. Gutekunst specifically, especially, doesn't strike me as somebody, who would make decisions to, kind of perform for his new boss or pander to his new boss. Or whatever. And I think they've done a really good job. They've also been very conservative. This is not the kind of move that you see the Packers make, but it makes total sense because this is a home run swing, but you've got a great chance. Dallas threw an 88-mile-an-hour fastball down the middle, so you take the home run swing. You have to do it. And Gutekunst, he won this trade. I mean, he won it going away by a mile. Whether it's Jerry Jones' ego, whether he's just angry with Micah Parsons, whatever it was, he was emotional. And Gutekunst, I have trouble saying his name. He really made off. So and also Matt LaFleur too. We talked about this the last time we talked. He's been a really successful head coach, and he's an offensive schemer, one of the best in the game. I think Green Bay's set up. I would expect both of those guys to be around for a while. I do think you're right, though, that at least as far as LaFleur goes, there would have been some pressure on him, say, if the Packers take a step back this year, if they didn't make the playoffs, or if they got into the playoffs again and, were summarily dismissed as they were last January. That could come back to bite him, because even though he's done a really good job, they've been a perennial playoff team. They've won playoff games. At some point when you're the Green Bay Packers, you're one of the 3 or 4 historic franchises in the NFL. You get close, and then people just start thinking, okay, well, if this guy can't bust through, it's been 7 or 8 years or however many years it's been, now it's time to go with somebody else. But I really think that some of the moves they made, drafting Matthew Golden, I think he's going to be great. Trading for Micah Parsons, I think he's going to be excellent. And they also are going to be a team that I wouldn't be surprised to see them be active, ahead of the trade deadline if there's something out there for them. I mean, we'll see what they need. I think their offense is pretty well set, but we'll see what they need. But yeah, it would make sense for them because I think that they have a legitimate chance to get to the Super Bowl this year. I would put them up there with the Eagles and the Lions, and whoever ends up coming out of the NFC West as, the top 4 teams.
Well, that's an interesting take because right out of the bat, the Packers get the Lions here in week 1. which should be interesting because on one side, you've got the newly minted Micah Parsons wearing, the yellow and green of Green Bay. And on the other side, you've got the rejuvenated, rehabbed Aiden Hutchinson wearing the Honolulu blue and silver of the Detroit Lions. So it could be a matchup of whoever's havoc wrecks the most havoc wins the ball game.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, and Hutchinson, this is his first game back since week 5 of last season. Now, I'm sure, obviously, he's played a lot of football since, and he's rehabbed that broken leg that he had. I'm sure he's at full health, and you're probably not going to see much of a drop off, but it is, I guess, a little bit of a benefit for Green Bay to be playing against him at home in his first game back in almost a full calendar year. That said, he had 7.5 sacks in 4.5 games last year. He was on pace to have 30 sacks last season. I don't think it was gonna actually end up there, but Trey Hendrickson led the NFL with 17.5. Hutchinson was within 10 sacks of that number and had 12.5 games left to play before he broke his leg. He probably would have been the NFL leader in that very important category had he been healthy all last year. So that's a huge concern for Green Bay, obviously. But I really don't like what Detroit has done in terms of their edge rush other than bringing Hutchinson back, because they've done nothing. They drafted a kid out of Boise State in the 6th round, and I've got his name in front of me. I don't want to try to say it because I don't want to butcher it and offend him. It's a hard name to say, especially for a guy from Iowa. But he could be something. Right now, he's the number two guy, or he's a reserve behind Hutchinson on the depth chart. They're starting Marcus Davenport, and Marcus Davenport was a Saint, and then he was a Viking. Now he's a Lion. I believe he's played 6 games in the last 2 years and put up 2.5 sacks in those 6 games. And the season before that, he was with the New Orleans Saints. That was his last year down in New Orleans. Played 15 games, had half a sack. So we're talking about a guy who's put up 3 sacks in his last 21 games, can't stay healthy. He's starting on the other side opposite Hutchinson. So Green Bay doesn't really have to worry about him. I mean, I would imagine that they're going to line Hutch up over Walker. And, obviously, why not? Because Zach Tom is one of the best right tackles in the game. But, Rasheed Walker is just an average, an average left tackle at best. So I would imagine they'll do that. I feel like Green Bay is just going to probably try to chip him, double team him, use a running back, keep a tight end in. And you're not going to stop that guy, but you can contain him enough when there's no one else really to worry about in terms of a pass rush on the front four. So I would say Green Bay has the edge there, even though Parsons may not play as much as he normally would because he's got the back injury and because he's dealing with, he didn't play a lot this preseason and they might need to ramp him up a little bit. I still think you'll see him on the field. He may not be his normal, incredibly effective self, but I wouldn't be surprised if he walks out of there with at least 1 sack, for the game.
Yeah, that would make sense, especially the way he's played in the past. The interesting thing about this Lions matchup to me is if you look at the box scores from last year, Detroit won both games. They swept Green Bay last year. But when you look at the stats, the numbers aren't that far apart. Offensively or defensively, they were pretty even. They won 1 by 10, they won 1 by 3. So these teams are actually pretty suited to play against each other. It might come down to who can make the one play that causes the difference, right?
Yeah, I think so. And, Detroit got a little worse, and I think Green Bay got a little better over the offseason. Detroit lost both of their coordinators. Their offensive line isn't quite as good as it was last year. They're healthier on defense than they were, obviously, heading into the playoffs. They had a ton of injuries, so that's going to make a difference. But I do think Green Bay got markedly better, and I think Jordan Love is going to be healthier, obviously, because he's had this whole offseason to rest. and Green Bay's playing at Lambeau Field. I don't know what the line is specifically. I think it's moved a little bit. I would pick Green Bay to win this game. I think that they're going to open the season with a big win over Detroit, and I kind of think that that's really important for them to set the tone for the entire year. Obviously, they could still have a great season if they end up losing this game by a touchdown or by a field goal with 32 seconds left on the clock or whatever it is. It's not going to determine their year, but I kind of, it's just the more I think about it, I feel like Green Bay is going to win this division. And if you're going to win the division, you need to beat Detroit at home in the first game of the season.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Well, Max Dibble, thank you so much for taking some time out for joining us. Really appreciate you talking about the Packers with us. Enjoy that first game of the year. I know it's going to be quite an interesting race there in the NFC North because, look, the Bears are going to be better. They're bound to be, with year 2 of Caleb Williams, a new coach. Things are starting, Bears fans are starting to chirp a little bit. They're making some noise. It could be an interesting year in the NFC North for a change.
Could be.
Have a good one, Max. Enjoy that first week. We'll talk again with you soon. We will take a quick break here on the Sports IQ and be right back with some more.
Everything is expensive right now. Gas, food, you name it. You're spending more, you are making the same or less money. So, what do? You rack up credit card debt. That's what you do. It's not your fault. It's the economy. And guess what? If you rack up too much credit card debt like some of us, you can't pay your bills. Then the credit card companies, as nice as they are, start hounding you for money. Then you start your downward spiral. A smart thing for you to do is to call the Zero Debt. They can help you consolidate all your credit card bills into one affordable payment. Millions of people have done it. It works to make you debt-free. Make this free call right now. It costs you nothing to learn more.
800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. 800-507-7293. That's 800-507-7293.
You're listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Hey, welcome back here to the show. One other NFL note to get along to you. Wide receiver Amari Cooper last week signed a 1-year deal to play with the Raiders. Has had a change of heart. He's informed the team that he no longer has the desire to play and intends to retire. This is according to NFL media. 5-time Pro Bowler hangs up the cleats after 10 NFL seasons. Amari Cooper, just one of our favorite players. Really enjoyed watching him, but seen this before. My friend Carl Pickens did that. Played 8 seasons with the Bengals, 8 or 9 years. 1 year with Tennessee, was injured half the year. Was going to play with the Cowboys in preseason, signed like this 1-year contract for like league minimum. Then went, I don't want to play. So yeah, it happens. It happens. So Amari Cooper, a fun player. Hey, one other story too that we hadn't talked about yet. Did you see the NBA All-Star Game has now they've set the parameters, right? The rules. It's been an issue, like how they're going to do this, how they're going to make it fun, get people to watch, because it's really kind of unwatchable right now. They talked about doing maybe like a USA versus the world kind of thing. The All-Star Game in next February does fall during the Winter Olympics. NBC now has rights to both the Olympics and the NBA, so that's a big part of this. But they're going to go to 3 teams, 2 teams made up of U.S. players and 1 team made up of international players, and they're going to do a round robin on the same day, move it from the evening to the afternoon, and everyone plays 12-minute quarters to determine the winner. I don't know. I'm not sure about this. I was really a fan of the whole USA versus the world thing. That's a really great concept, and somewhere we lost it. So I'm not sure quite what's going on. So with that, but anyway, we'll see what happens. Okay. Little baseball news for you now. On the diamond, interesting night in Houston last night. Carlos Rodon pitching 6 strong innings to tie for the league in wins with his 16th. Trent Gresham continued to supply extra power to the Yankees lineup as New York beat Houston 8-4, and they take 2 out of 3 in that series. But the night was not without drama. After Houston's Taylor Trammell doubled in the 9th to give Houston 2 men on, New York's manager asked that the umpire crew look at Trammell's bat. The crew, after conferring with the league office, confiscated the bat for further examination by MLB offices. The Astros then brought the tying run to the plate against reliever David Bednar, who struck out both Carlos Correa and Christian Walker to seal the deal. But the whole bat controversy, let's see what happens with that. In Pittsburgh, Paul Skeens pitched 6 scoreless innings, earning his 10th win of the season. The Pirates beat the NL West leading Dodgers 5-3 as they finish off a 3-game sweep. Skeens now 10-9 on the season. Hard to believe, but a pitcher with an ERA of 1.98 is just getting over 500 on the season for the first time in September. Like we said yesterday, what might have been in Pittsburgh, they had any kind of offense over there. Ranger Suarez pitched 6 shutout innings. Trey Turner singled home the go-ahead run with 2 outs in the 7th. Phillies over Milwaukee 2-0 on Thursday. The Phillies, by the way, took 2 of 3 games in that matchup between NL division leaders. WNBA, last night, Golden State made history. 5th straight win, 84-80 over Dallas. But that's not the record part. We've been talking about it for a while now. The Valkyries make history, becoming the first WNBA expansion team to make the playoffs in their first season. What a year it's been out there in Golden State. Year 1, every home game's a sellout. Head coach Natalie Nikasi should be certainly in the conversation for coach of the year, taking a team without a star player, without an alpha, and making it work. Not only setting a record for wins, but coming through and now the first to make the playoffs. Fantastic story out there in the Bay. Janelle Salone scored 19 points. Veronica Burton chipped in with 15, including 4 free throws down the stretch to seal the win. Rookie Paige Beckers, by the way, continues to be a shining light for Dallas in this lost season. 27 points, 6 assists for Dallas. They lost for the 14th time in the last 15 games, but Paige keeps bringing it. She's lost more games this year than in her entire 5-year career at UConn. In Vegas, a possible preview of that WNBA Finals matchup. The red hot, I mean, hotter than a Vegas sidewalk in August, kind of hot. Aces got their 13th straight win over league-leading Minnesota, 97-87. This was a fantastic game throughout. Asia Wilson, another 30-point game, 31 points, 8 rebounds. Jackie Young added 20 points. By the way, Wilson, 12th time this year that she's hit 30 points or more. That ties the league record. By the way, for the Aces, their first win over the Lynx since May of 2024. They had that debacle where they were blown out last month, right before they began this big run. They turned things around, looked really, really good last night. Phoenix keeping pace with the Aces for second place in the league standings, 75-69 over Washington. Kalia Copper with 18 points. Alyssa Thomas just missing a triple-double again. 12 points, 11 rebounds, 9 assists. Mercury have now won 6 in a row. The Mystics have dropped 8 straight. Okay, stay with us. We've got talk more about Illinois Duke in football down in Durham. That's coming up next here on the Sports IQ.
Are you tired of your website making your business look bad? Is your current web developer dropping the ball? Let's face it, if your website isn't making you money, it's broken. Let Neon Rain create a website that turns your visitors into customers. Neon Rain has worked with hundreds of businesses across North America, building custom websites and applications with modern designs that are easy to update and work well on mobile devices. They can do it for you too. What sets Neon Rain apart? They actually deliver on their promises. Call today for a free consultation, 303-957-3092. That's Neon Rain at 303-957-3092. Or visit them at neonrain.com.
You're locked in to Sports IQ with Larry Smith.
Welcome back here to the show. As we talked about earlier, top 25 matchups. There's the great matchup we had on the show earlier, looking at the big matchup in the evening out in Norman, Oklahoma, number 18 Oklahoma, hosting 15th ranked Michigan. A great matchup there. Intriguing matchup, though, earlier in the day. It's a noon Eastern time. I think it's on ESPN. 11th ranked Illinois is at Duke. Now, I'm sure when these two teams, when they signed the contract to play this game, they did not think they'd be having the season they would be having. Illinois coming off a 10-win season, only the 5th one in program history. There's that. And then Duke is coming on again with the star quarterback, Darien Mensa, as we discussed earlier. So our friends over at Illini Guys, Mike Cagley, had an interview with Josh Cox, who's a Duke podcaster, talking about this matchup, starting with this outstanding quarterback, Mensa. Let's listen in.
I mean, when you look at the sheer numbers, there's no denying it. I mean, Malik broke a single season touchdown record, passing touchdown record for Duke. By the way, shout out Coke Zero. Got one myself.
Yep. Coke Zero brings this podcast to you.
There we go. But Malik, his numbers were great. If you really watch the film, and then if you also understand what Duke's offensive coordinator, Jonathan Brewer, really wants to do. Jonathan Brewer comes from SMU, And at SMU, they really appreciate extending the play. They do a dual threat, like the quarterback can run, obviously, but there's really some long progressions, and there's different. You want your quarterback being able to keep the ball as long as possible. And Malik did not truly fit that in any way, to be honest with you, Mike. And what happened was, if you think back to the hiring of Manny Diaz was hired. He lands Malik Murphy in the transfer portal in December, actually the day of the bowl game. Duke played Troy in the Birmingham Bowl. Incredible experience, by the way. Played in the Birmingham Bowl. That morning, Malik Murphy commits. Well, Jonathan Brewer doesn't get hired until after that. And so you get your quarterback, and then you get your OC, and it's like, hey, guys, like, make this work. And so I believe at the end of the day, it was Coach Brewer and Coach Diaz saying, we know where we want this offense to go. And it's not going to get where we want it to go with a quarterback with a skill set of Malik Murphy, which, by the way, is a cannon of an arm, can throw the deep ball, can really fit passes into places that shouldn't fit. But he does not extend plays. He's not a willing runner. And so I think Duke had to make a call for the overall benefit of the program moving forward.
Yeah. And I'll tell you what, when you look at what Mensa did at Tulane, I mean, he didn't have a multi-interception game as a freshman starter. That is, I don't care what level you're playing at, that is something that you just don't see very often. And Duke reportedly, now who knows, you read these figures, but reportedly an $8 million deal to get him to come, and you get a guy for, in theory, 3 years. It seems like a heck of a opportunity for the Duke football team. And of course, he had a heck of a second half in the season opener. So tell Illini fans a little bit about what Mensa does and what makes him so special, because clearly he's caught the eye of more coaches than just the Duke staff.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was said, and once again, as you mentioned with the financial numbers, this is all hearsay, and you're dealing now with agents, and you're dealing with a lot of different people in the camp. But Duke was told that there were multiple SEC schools that were hot on his heels, and that he ultimately chose Duke because he knew that Duke was right on the verge, and he knew that if he takes Duke to the next step and the next level, ultimately, and this is not him being selfish, but it bodes the best for Darien Mensa, right? I mean, if you go to an SEC school, you're probably in a quarterback battle no matter what. And I think Duke was the place he knew he could come, and he would be given the keys. And Duke won 8 games 2 years ago, 9 games last season. And this is a team that really is looking to take the next step, which would be into the ACC championship game. That's the next step for Duke football. And so what Darien Mensa brings, though, he was a third stringer going into camp last year at Tulane, beat out the other 2 guys, which shout out to Summerall, I believe is his name, down there at Tulane, for actually doing that. It's difficult sometimes to make those decisions, but he beat those guys out, had a great season. And I believe, kind of what I said earlier, what he brings to the table for Duke is a prolific passer, but he can do it on the run. He can do it in and out of the pocket. He can extend plays, and Duke's got a couple of smaller but very twitchy, quick wide receivers that really can benefit by a quarterback holding on to the football a little bit longer. It allows them to get open a little bit on those crossing patterns and whatnot. And so that's what Darien brings in. And I think on the intangible side, he brings a leadership to the locker room. I believe the guys immediately appreciated his personality and the way that he led. He went on spring break with a ton of the offensive linemen and some of the other guys on offense. And he's just gone out of his way to really try to lead in that way. I think in this world of the transfer portal, getting in and really trying to mesh with your teammates is a really big thing. And I think Darien's done a great job of that.
How does his arm compare when you compare it to what was there last year? And is he a guy who can throw that 30-yard out, that type of thing that people look for in the NFL? How is his arm?
Yeah, I would say, being fair to Malik Murphy, it's not Malik Murphy's arm. I mean, I don't know that many people in college football have his raw talent arm. I will say this. I believe, and I can't speak to the NFL arm because, that's a special talent. Yeah. I do believe that Darien Mensa can make every high-level college football throw that needs to be made. And, what to me that translates. The intangibles then come into play for the next level, right? Does he have the brain? Does he have the ability to make decisions in the moment, reading defenses and all that stuff is what we're going to find out, right? That's what we're going to find out this year and next year, as we see how he's going to look in the pros. But he does have the arm strength. I would say Malik Murphy's in the top, 5% arm strength in the country. And I would pull Darien down to maybe the top 15 to 20% of that in the country. So not quite as strong, but definitely can make all the throws.
So when he drops back to pass, of course, you got to have somebody who can catch the ball. What is out there that the Illini fans are going to be watching these receivers and be wary of?
Yeah, for sure. Duke graduated their top two wide receivers from last year's team, Jordan Moore, who's on the practice squad in Cincinnati, Eli Pancol, the same in Jacksonville. And those two guys really, Jordan Moore was a little banged up last year, or else his numbers would have looked better, but Eli had a great year. And so Duke replaced those two guys with two guys in the portal. One of them is Andrew Anthony, started his career at Michigan, had a season at Oklahoma that was full of injuries. 2 seasons at Oklahoma, actually, and he's come to Duke now. Anthony has the skills to be a wide receiver 1. It's just a matter of, is his body right? He's coming off of an injury. I think Duke is kind of taking its time a little bit. So the other is a kid named Cooper Barkate. He transferred from Harvard, right? So when you hear that, you're like, okay, it's the Ivy League transfer at a skill position. You're going to temper the expectations. The issue is, or the thing about Cooper that makes it intriguing is that he was recruited by Oregon and there's a list. I forget all the lists coming out of high school. And he specifically chose to go to Harvard thinking of the academic side. Now he's got his, poor kid. He's got his undergrad at Harvard and he's coming to Duke for his MBA. But he really impressed in the first game against Elon, over 100 yards receiving. He's very fast. And so those are the two guys that Duke got in the portal. And then there are two other guys. Samir Hagans is a senior who's been in the wide receiver room for 4 seasons. He really has improved his body. I mean, he's now a 22-year-old, 23-year-old man as opposed to an 18-year-old freshman. Yep. And so that says something. And then there's a sophomore, Kayshawn Brown. Duke fans call him Queso. But Queso is a slot guy. Queso and Samir are extremely twitchy, very fast. Queso had 93 yards receiving. I know we'll get to special teams. He also returned a punt for a touchdown in week 1. So those are the 4 guys that you're going to really see in the main rotation. A couple others you will see, but those are the 4 main guys.
And do they throw the tight end much in this offense?
So Duke returned their starting tight end from last year who got hurt in the Northwestern game. At Northwestern, they were playing on that makeshift field. Somehow he tears his ACL on a fair caught punt. I'm not sure how that even happened, but he is back. Jeremiah Hazley, and then Duke landed a tight end from Utah, Landon King, in the portal. And so really Duke runs 2 tight end ones. Honestly, they each only recorded 1 reception in the first week, but we do believe there was a little bit held back from the arsenal in week 1. We mentioned Coach Brewer, the offensive coordinator at SMU. They use the tight ends like crazy. I think one of their tight ends had like 7 or 8 touchdown receptions in Brewer's final year there. So we expect the tight ends to be used more, and they've got 2 guys that really can catch the ball.
Yeah. So when they drop back to pass, how's the protection around Mensa? Is the offensive line a competent offensive line?
So last season, the offensive line had its fair share of struggles in the run game on run blocking, but they really did keep Malik Murphy off the ground. Now, some of that was probably due to how quickly Murphy got the ball out. He was very much of a one-read quarterback, and as we mentioned earlier, he could fit the ball in places that you shouldn't be able to throw the football. So I do believe they benefited from that. Mensa was sacked twice in the game against Elon this past weekend. So I do believe Duke has a competent offensive line. They returned 4 out of the 5 starters. One of Duke's starting offensive linemen, Brian Parker, is a PFF All-Star. He's on those lists all the time. He's going to be drafted a la Graham Barton from Duke a couple years ago. And I believe there's at least one other guy on that line, Justin Pickett, that'll play in the league. So a decent line. I do believe that they have a little bit to prove because of the lack of run game last season and a lot of criticism that they faced. And so they do protect the quarterback, though, as long as Darien can get rid of the ball. And him holding onto the football, when you've got to hold a block for multiple seconds there, it becomes a challenge.
Yeah. And I know Illinois, every once in a while last week, Luke Altmaier was guilty of maybe hanging onto the ball just a little bit too long, which could cause some problems for the offense. When you look at the running game, are there any running backs that the Illini fans or obviously the Fighting Illini have circled as somebody who's going to be dangerous out there and have to keep their guard up against?
So it's very interesting with Duke. Obviously, a lot of teams are doing running back by committee. And this is no different for Duke. There is a running back one. His name's Jacquez Moore. He was injured for most of the season last year, but he's been solid. I mean, in his best games, the game in his career that stands out to me was 2 seasons ago in Tallahassee against Florida State. Duke almost won that game, and he ran all over the field. So he's got the talent to do it. So he's running back one, but then there's 3 guys that are underneath him. Anderson Castle is a transfer from App State. That's kind of a bruiser. They expect him to be like a short yardage type of a guy, but he busted a 63-yard run out against Elon this past week. And then Peyton Jones is a junior, been in the system, has always kind of been the second guy. He'll still be that. And then there's a true freshman, Nate Shepard, a highly recruited kid. He's got the body. During spring camp and fall camp, it was the talk of, we can't tackle this guy. We can't tackle him. And so he had a decent showing in the first week. I don't know how much that we'll see of him, but that's really the 4-headed monster, 3.5-headed monster that Illini fans will see. Jacquez Moore broke off a long touchdown run. As I said, Anderson Castle had a 63-yard run. He got caught at like the 5-yard line. He's not the fastest guy in the world, but he can fall forward for 2 or 3 yards. In true Big Ten, traditional Big Ten football fashion, we have one of those guys.
Yes. Well, we have one as well. So when you look at this offense is one that can put points up on the board, and I have to think that coming into this game, they see a team that could be. We don't know what the rankings are yet, but this is a team that has an outside chance of coming in ranked in the top 10. How pumped up is this Duke team to play the Illini?
Well, one of the in order for Duke to take the next step, ACC championship game is the next step. But what also comes with that is respect nationally. And Duke has both Illinois and Tulane and UConn, kind of a weird, kind of a trap game in November up in Connecticut, which could be a problem.
Yeah.
So 3 out of the 4 non-con games this season, I would say are solid. And if Duke is going to become respected nationally, these are the types of games that they just have to prove themselves. And you guys had an incredible season last year and brought back basically your entire starting offense and defense. And so for Duke, this is a litmus test. This is a litmus test to, is this going to be a 9-3, potentially 10-2 team if they win Saturday? Or is this going to be a team that's like, okay, we're 7-5, we're 8-4, we're going to the typical bowl game that we've been going to for the last few years, which, being a longtime Duke guy, I'm not necessarily complaining about that because I sat through 0-11 and all those years previously. But for Duke, for the football program, for this team, Saturday's game is a litmus test. It's a Big Ten opponent. It's an opponent that, as you mentioned, could be in the top 10, opponent that brings back so many guys. So obviously, the program, Coach Bielema and his staff, they're doing something right, keeping these guys here in this era where everybody loves to bounce around. And so this is just a way for Duke to once again say, hey, we're here. We're a legitimate program, and we're not a flash in the pan.
Again, thanks again to our friends at Illini Guys and Mike Cagley for that interview with Josh Cox. It is Illinois, number 11 team in the country at Duke, at noon Eastern time tomorrow on ESPN. Okay, stay with us. Much more to come here on the Sports IQ. Welcome back here. Producer Tony joining us for our final conversation before we hit the weekend. And Tony, we were talking here before the show about a new NCAA ruling that we have some concerns about. Tell us what's going on.
Yeah, so the NCAA, the Executive Council, came up with a plan, and they're going to present it to the major council that has to approve everything in October about opening the portal window for football and just making it one window. There won't be a spring window anymore. It'll just be one window, but it'll open January the 2nd for 10 days for kids who want to enter the transfer portal. And Larry, the issue I have with it that is like right after all the quarterfinals. We've played the New Year's Day games. It's done. We're down to our semifinals and our finals for college football, and you're going to open the portal with 4 teams still playing. And look, I get it. You want to give kids a chance to get, if they want to go to a new school, get ready for that other semester. But my thought is, why didn't you think about opening it up in November? If you know, at least give the coach time. Imagine being a semifinal. Imagine, say, being Georgia, right, last year and getting to the semifinals, and Carson Beck hadn't been hurt, but it said, yeah, look, I see the handwriting on the wall here with Gunnar Stockton. I'm out.
Mhm.
And suddenly you're not playing without Carson Beck because of an injury. You're playing without Carson Beck because he decided to skedaddle and go somewhere else. I just don't think it's fair to the players. I don't think it's fair to the coaches. I don't think it's fair to the games. I agree that something had to be done, but I think they missed the mark. That's just my thought.
Yeah, it's I know they're trying to do something like you said, and it's I don't know what the solution is, because like we were debating here, off air. I guess it's because they were trying to allow those players leaving to be able to have the time to enroll in their new school in time for the spring semester. But like you said, then if that's the case, then do it in November. I'm not sure the way the football calendar goes unless they push the calendar, the start date back even earlier, or you shorten the regular seasons. There's so much money being had. We know that's not happening, because that means everybody loses a home game and all the money you'd make on that. I don't know what the solution is.
Well, you could follow the high school model, like here in Georgia. The season starts in early August. So start college football before that semester begins. And normally most of those semesters are starting by mid-August anyway at most schools, right? And wrap it up, play your championship game on January 1. Done. Boom. You got the whole month of December to play the minor bowls and all the playoffs, and maybe you have to dump the conference championships, or those conference champions happen Thanksgiving weekend, and you adjust the calendar a little bit. So if you're going to open this poll on January 2nd, everything's happened, season's over, we've had our championship game on January 1st. Imagine New Year's Day where you only have one game, but it's the biggest game of the year in college football. It becomes your Super Bowl. It becomes your day. You've got everything. You've got 6 hours to prep it. You play at 6 o'clock in the evening where everybody can watch, just like the Super Bowl, instead of at 9 o'clock when you lose some people and you lose younger viewers, and you're good to go.
Yeah.
Maybe they should hire us.
Yeah, exactly. There it was. We figured just like that. Boom, it's done. So, and to your point, then you have, if it's a month, whatever the window is, you have a month. Signing day is back to, again, February 2nd, thereabouts, whatever, and you're back to where that's for your high school, not for transfer portal. But to your point, you'd have the window where you do have that 10 days, 2 weeks, make those decisions, get the kids on campus, get them ready, etc. So yeah, I'm totally with you. We've got to figure it out. Okay. Well,
we got to figure it out. Now we got to figure out something with Bill Belichick.
Yeah.
Larry, I read this also. Bill Belichick is not letting the New England Patriots come and scout on campus, and he's limiting access to the other NFL teams. Look, I know the guy's an ex-NFL coach, and he's kind of a control freak. I get it. But is he doing a disservice to his players?
Yeah. I mean, are you kidding me? And here's the thing, that's a huge nugget to negative recruit against Bill Belichick and UNC. Forget the debacle on opening night, which they'll rebound from that. They'll be better. But yeah, if I'm somebody and everyone's trying to get to the NFL, and then I'm not going to talk to scouts. I got to go through this guy to talk to a scout.
Right. You're gonna limit them to what they can see of me and how they can grade me, and they can't talk to me while I'm playing for you. Man, if I'm Clemson, if I'm Notre Dame, and I'm up trying to get a certain 4-star kid, you better believe I'm going to use that in recruiting. Hey, you come to us, we welcome those guys on campus. They can come do what they want, talk to you. We'll help you get ready for the league, blah, blah, blah. I just don't think it's a great move on Belichick's part. I don't think he understands the college game.
Yeah. He's almost like the anti Pete Carroll, it sounds like. So
Yeah.
Those years. Let's not get into that conversation. All right. We have a tremendous moment of awe for you next.
Fans of big sports radio and sports spectacular podcasts have a new home on the Chief Sports Network. Find your favorite programs and content all in one place by downloading the Chief Sports app in your mobile device. Created in South Carolina, the Chief Sports Network is the home of an expanding network of live and podcast format programming. It is also the home of one of the leading national college football podcasts, JC and Morgan, hosted by ESPN's Mike Morgan and 24/7 Sports' JC Sherbert. Download the Chief Sports app for free and find all of your favorite programming under one easy umbrella. Thanks to all of our markets for your loyal support of Big Sports Radio and our Sports Spectacular podcast, and we look forward to connecting with you anywhere in the world on the Chief Sports app.
Okay, we've come to our moment of awe here on Friday, and this is great. His name is Bill Greason, and on Wednesday, he turned 101. He is the oldest living former Major League Baseball player. From Birmingham, he served in World War II. In fact, he was in the Pacific Theater, part of the Battle of Iwo Jima, defended our country, and my goodness, we salute you for that alone. Greason also played for the Birmingham Black Barons with Willie Mays in the old Negro Leagues, later became the Cardinals' second African-American player. His church was bombed by the Ku Klux Klan in 1963, that infamous bombing where 4 young girls were killed. He responded by going and studying to be a minister and pastored his own church in the Birmingham area for decades. And he is now 101 years old. Bill Greason, sir, we salute you in so many ways. Hopefully you had an extra serving of cake. You deserve everything. 101 years old. Truly our moment of awe. We appreciate Max Dibble coming by. We appreciate the Illini guys for lending us the conversation with Mike Cagley and Josh Cox. We hope you have a great weekend. So much coming up here this weekend. So many games. Enjoy them all. Enjoy the great weather as well. We are back here on Monday. It's the Sports IQ. We'll see you then.
Thanks for listening to Sports IQ with Larry Smith, Monday through Friday. Continue the conversation at SportsIQ LS. We'll see you next time.